All right, it's our pleasure right now to be in the LSU Athletics building with Keli Zinn. She is a Chief Operating Officer, joined LSU this past summer. Keli, thanks so much for being here today. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Good to see you.
This is an important room we're sitting in, right? Lots of big-time decisions are made here.
Yes, we spend a lot of time in this one.
So you're from West Virginia, graduated from there. I guess no different than, say, Brian Kelly or Kim Mulkey. You were pretty entrenched where you were. What was Scott Woodward's pitch to get you to LSU?
Yeah, well, and I think it was a combination of Scott and obviously what LSU represents in the world of college athletics. And so when the phone call came in, there's a whole lot that goes through your mind there, but it was an opportunity for me to obviously be part of a premier institution in the SEC, right? Very attractive there with everything that's going on in the world of athletics and realignment and some of those things. But the history and tradition that exists here and what we've been able to accomplish, I've always felt like when you compare the right people with the right resources, championships are a real opportunity for folks. And so that's here, right? And in talking with Scott and his vision and what he saw on the horizon, there was no doubt to me that they had assembled a really great group of coaches, and we have resources to pair with that, with a significant high expectation for winning and results and a student athlete experience that's second to none. So professionally, pretty easy decision for me to make. Personally, tough, right, for all the obvious reasons, but professionally, this one was a definite for me.
So you come here to replace Stephanie Remp, and anybody who knew anything about LSU athletics knew the role that Stephanie played with Scott. Very important role in hiring coaches, firing coaches at LSU, at Washington, at Texas A&M. So was that kind of the conversation with Scott? Hey, Keli, you're going to play a big role in decision making here.
Yeah, it was. You know, Scott made it really clear, and some of the folks around him who also had some conversation with me about the job was this role carries a lot of autonomy and authority to make decisions and run things, and that was a really attractive piece for me at a place in my career where I felt like I was both ready to do it and excited to do it as well.
Now, at West Virginia, you became the first female athletic director ever, right? On an interim basis, but it was a pretty significant role that you played there.
Yeah, and super appreciative to President Gordon Gee, who gave me that opportunity, one that will forever be one of the brighter moments of my career. And so just super thrilled to have been able to sit in the chair for a short period of time, but nonetheless be able to do it a little bit.
Coming to LSU football this year. Now, we went to West Virginia in 2011. LSU played up there. And I think ESPN College Game Day was there.
Yeah.
And it was a big game. LSU won handily that day. Tyrann Mathieu and company had a big day. A very interesting student section, may I say. Very boisterous kids at the time.
Oh yes, yeah. The fans of Mountaineer Nation, while not as nearly as significant in numbers as those of Tiger Nation, share some similar qualities.
Yeah. So that's over a decade ago. I'm sure they're in their 30s now. They're productive people in our society, I'm sure. But you're coming from a place, obviously, that has some football tradition. But coming to LSU, SEC, 100,000 seats in Tiger Stadium and so forth, what was it like for you to observe and be in your first season of LSU football?
Yeah. Oh, gosh, it was incredible for everything that you noted and just the scale and magnitude that it's on. That was one of the things that really attracted to us to this move. But then you pair with that the fact that we had such a great year and being a part of knocking off Alabama and the significance of that, and it's one that we will forever remember. And to have that happen in year one is just something that gives us so much hope for what things look like on the future.
Was your heart in your throat when they went for 2?
It was. In fact, it's funny. We were actually down on the sideline, and I had a couple of our guys with me, and I jokingly said, "Go for it." And then saw it happen, and in that moment you go, oh my gosh, what's happening? Yeah. And so incredible the way it worked out, but in the moment you definitely just, crazy.
Yeah, that's definitely one of those moments you take to your grave. You'll never forget, standing there watching Jaden Daniels throw the pass to Mason Taylor there to win the game. Tremendous. So what are your responsibilities during the year? Now, we see you come in and out of press conferences, Coach Keli on Monday, Coach Keli after games and so forth, but what is your role during football season?
Yeah, so, and the roll through football season is similar to kind of what it looks like through the course of the year, in that I'm trying to stay dialed into our programs as much as I can. Everything filters through this position, and so oversight of the sports through various administrators, and making sure things are going smoothly for them, that they have the resources that they need. My job is kind of to eliminate barriers and issues that may exist that create problems for us, whether it's being successful in the field of play, recruiting, academically, you name it. And so a lot of the internal operations, but then also the external piece of the house as well. So I spend a lot of time in the world of multimedia rights and sport properties. We work closely with that group. Any type of external contracts and those type of things. Name, image, and likeness is a hot topic at the moment. So my days look very different, but also very similar in just trying to keep a touch point and a pulse on everything that's going on in the department.
You work very closely with Brian Kelly, LSU head football coach, his first year on the job. A lot of people thought he could have been SEC Coach of the Year and National Coach of the Year in some regards. He was right up there with the job that he did. Just give me a little sense of what it's like to work with him and his vision for where LSU is going.
Yeah, well, and he has a vision that he can very easily lay out and know what the expectations are for that program. And I think it starts there, and him being real clear in what he's trying to accomplish here, and that's to win a national championship. But there's a professionalism to it in a way where significant attention to detail, expectations of how things need to run, what he expects from his staff, his players, his coaches, and there's not any real question mark there. So you show up, you work really hard, you're expected to deliver, and that's been made real clear, and to do it in a way where also in the midst of that, we have some fun and enjoy those wins.
Absolutely. Yeah, because his move in the offseason, a lot of national people had things to say about it. Was it insincere? And did LSU just pay so much money he couldn't turn it down and whatnot? But I think obviously people have seen, in less than a year, the results on the field, and that he's invested in this.
Yeah, and I think we're all hopeful for that, right? We live in a world where you do kind of sometimes have to prove yourself. And I think based upon the reaction that we received from the fan base and folks and those who are close to it, and maybe not as close to it, folks are pleased. And there's no doubt, the loss at A&M was not something that we expected, but we're going to continue to build up on that, and I think it's clear that the future is bright. You look at recruiting stuff and where they rank right now nationally, and it's pretty incredible what they've been able to do in a short period of time.
Absolutely. I grew up on bowl games. I'm a fan of bowl games. I think it gives you the opportunity, like in LSU's case, to finish with 10 wins and to move yourself up in the final AP rankings and stuff like that. In 2018, before you got here, LSU won a Fiesta Bowl and moved into the top 10. So those kind of things seem to be important. But do you like bowls, and what do you think about the playoff and how it's affecting bowl games now?
Yeah. Well, and I think what happens with the playoff and what we see in the future with the expansion of that certainly is going to take shape in a way where things are going to look different. I'm hopeful there's some added level of excitement and energy surrounding that. But I think bowl games absolutely are something that helps, particularly with the development of your players, and to give them an opportunity to go out there and compete yet again and finish off the season with what you hope and expect is a win.
Mm-hmm. NIL is such an important thing in college football. It's exploded over the last couple of years. First off, I asked Coach Kelly a year ago, like, he can't go to a recruit and say, hey, if you come here, I'm going to have $100,000. Mm-hmm. But I also wonder, well, how can the NCAA really govern this or not give somebody a penalty? I haven't heard of a penalty yet of somebody, offering money for a kid to come. It's not supposed to be pay per play. They're supposed to do something in return. So what's your take on all that? Is this thing kind of hard to police?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can be one because when you're looking at the market, right, it's hard to really establish what is a market for a particular athlete or a group of athletes in a way that people can feel good about knowing what that figure is. So that's the first thing. But I think separate from that, not having an established, hey, we're going to give you X amount of money, and in exchange for that, you have to do X, Y, or Z. There's some flexibility there to determine whether or not that's a legit exchange or if it's not. And so I would venture to say the NCAA has stayed out of those particular instances and probably focusing more on the recruiting aspect of things. Our prospective athletes being offered up sums of money in exchange for coming to the school. And so there's a way to navigate through that. I think we've done a really good job with it here, and staying away from that, and instead helping young men and young women understand here is what is typical for an athlete, and tracking things in a way where you can see those numbers, understand what they are, and then if you are looking at LSU to come here, then you've got a pretty good guide of what that looks like for you. And so doing it in a way where you thread that needle without crossing a line that the NCAA is going to take issue with is obviously our job to do, and that's what we're doing.
Gotcha. A new challenge for coaches is to recruit the current roster. Like, we used to be just assume guys would come back if they didn't have a high ceiling in the NFL draft or whatnot. And so what does NIL play in that? Because the average fan goes, well, that guy came back, so they must have got him a lot of NIL money or
yeah, well, sometimes it does, right? I mean, there's no doubt that can make a difference and matters to our student athletes. I think where LSU is well positioned to do really well in this space is the fact that separate from NIL and short-term money that they would receive while they're in college, they want to win. They want to get to a point where they develop and they're trained to compete at the next level, and they get that opportunity. And so our goal here is, and I think what you're seeing from athletes buying into it, is we have all of that. And we are able to package together something where essentially the NIL money allows you to be comfortable and not have to worry financially the way student athletes used to when they were in school. But then you pair that with great coaches, elite performance, opportunities for training and development in a way where they know they're really achieving their ultimate goal. And so the short-term gain for NIL is not nearly what it is for the long-term gain of a professional career. And so we package those two, and we think that creates something really, really attractive for student athletes.
She's good, huh? She's good. When did you know, like growing up, that you wanted to do this? You know, being a woman in sports, and tackling the things that you're tackling, and obviously you're very, very sharp. And so when did this come about? Yeah,
that's a good question. That's a story we could talk about for a while. But in a nutshell, so I grew up in a very small town of 2,000 people. And loved sports, right? So I played basketball, I played tennis. We didn't have softball for girls where I came from, so I actually played baseball with the boys. And had a number of sports that I was involved in, and was actually a pretty good athlete. What I realized when I went to college is that I was a pretty good athlete because I didn't have a whole lot of competition in small Grant County, West Virginia, right? And so didn't have the talent and ability to be a part of a roster at the collegiate level, and as a result, there was no doubt a void inside of me that took me about a year and a half in some curriculum that wasn't very interesting to me to figure out I really am attracted to sports and athletics. And although at the time probably didn't know where it would take me, there was a sport management degree that I went into, and the rest is history, as they say. But there was the being wired in a way as an athlete, just at a lower level, and not being able to do it at the collegiate level, no doubt led me to where I am today.
That was a question I should have asked right off the bat, but it just popped into my head. And do you see yourself being an athletic director one day?
I'm hopeful of that. I think the opportunity here at LSU is undoubtedly going to prepare me for it. It's a reason we made the decision to be here, and I'm so grateful to Scott and the administration to allow me to do everything that I've been able to be involved in. And so we'll see. I tend to believe that you plan your work and you work your plan, and some of those things work out as best as they should. And so, but I'm hopeful.
Yeah. Well, we're definitely seeing women in positions we didn't before. I mean, like officiating football games, and stuff like that. And so it is a new time and a new movement. Scott Woodward, just being around him for a while now, what about him and his vision for LSU?
Yeah. So we obviously are thinking big and expecting big, right? And so at the moment, a number of things going on in the world of capital projects, and particularly relative to some time being spent on the PMAC and what that looks like and our opportunity to renovate that space. So that's super important, I think, for the future of LSU and everything else that we have going on from a capital project standpoint as well, and some things over at football and some upgrades to our boards and you name it. So there's a lot that goes into that, but we work in a way where we try not to be reactionary here at LSU. You're being strategic in what you're wanting to accomplish, and so a lot of opportunities there moving forward from a standpoint of revenue and capital projects and name, image, likeness, and you name it. There's a lot coming down the pipeline that we have to react to, but we try and get ahead of it and have a vision to do that.
I don't know how much you can share on that. The PMAC is always a topic. It was built, 50 years ago. They've gutted it at times. They've changed the seats. There's been, will there be a new PMAC, or do you just do what they've done like with the Superdome and keep cleaning up the inside and make it more, because you don't have any suites, right? That's like the one thing that like Auburn and Ole Miss have done with their new arenas. It's less seats, but it's more cozy and it's more of a social affair.
Yeah, I don't foresee that we would blow up the current structure there, and instead I think you can expect to see a renovation to it. But you can do a lot in the world of renovation these days, right? And so as I used to always say, you can accomplish anything with time and money. and right now what we're doing is trying to work together to identify some of those revenue opportunities so that we can be positioned to put something forward in the near future to be able to see that through.
I had a professor once, he was talking about films. He said, well, the three things: good, fast, cheap. You can have two, but you can't have all three, or something like that, right? It'd be good and fast, but it won't be cheap, And so, so you think it'll be kind of a case of maybe, taking the outside structure, it remains, but then cleaning up the inside or doing some stuff.
I think it's a combination. I think you'll see both a pretty significant overhaul inside, but you're also going to see some things on the exterior as well. No doubt, you can make the argument that the whole thing needs to have some upgrades to it. And so you'll see that, but that's where Scott's great because he's a gas pedal. You probably know that, and he knows how to push and get things done and keep us moving in a direction to see that through. It's a significant project, right? So those things don't happen overnight, but when you're diligent in your efforts to make sure it's moving forward, that certainly helps. Tiger Stadium and the LSU, and when it comes to LSU football, anything to share there? I know that they have made a concerted effort to get more medical and recovery area at football ops. But is there anything new on LSU football facilities? Yeah, we've got a number of things that we're looking at, not for next season, but what could potentially come online as early as the following of some upgrades to our boards. You're seeing across the country a lot of people who have the light shows and the LEDs, and so we're taking a look at some of that. Stuff that would enhance our in-game experience for fans. You throw 102,000 people in there, it's already incredible. Put some bells and whistles with it, I think we have the opportunity to create something really special. Yeah. And so we'll continue to do that. Those who were there this year, they probably saw we were having some issues with our boards, and so we're working on getting that fixed. And oftentimes, a lot goes into those things that you don't necessarily see, but are no doubt really important for fans and the experience that exists. Kelly, LED lights, I don't know. When Alabama did it, to me it almost looks like a mistake. Like, did the lights go out? Or, what's going on? Did you see the Tennessee game? So Tennessee did it well. Yeah, they did do it well. Okay. Auburn does a good job with it. Haven't been to Georgia yet to see that one, but it can be a pretty incredible experience. But you got to get it right. And so, there'll be plenty of practice, right? If you do try to do that. And so Tiger Stadium boards and just the whole Tiger Stadium experience, right? I mean, when I was growing up, we went to the games, we sat there to the end, no matter what, for the most part, and now it's just so people just seem so like
antsy and got to go here, got to go there, and they're petrified of traffic and leaving at halftime. And so, and then watching a game on TV, up in the press box, my two eyes are watching it, but if I'm watching it on TV, I get like 5 different camera angles within 20, 30 seconds, right? Yeah. So that's the battle you guys, Scott has talked about in terms of the football experience.
Yeah, well, and traffic is probably our biggest concern. We spent some time, we actually had folks here for the Alabama game, some experts who understand that world, and we've been looking at our patterns and trying to figure out if there's an opportunity to improve that and make that better. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest thing for people who are frustrated with that, my hope, is that no one feels like we're just sitting here saying, well, we get it, it's a problem, and there's not much we can do about it. And instead, we spend quite a bit of time and energy on trying to figure that out. But I also know our fan base deserves to see some movement there in hopes to make it a little bit better. So good problem to have, because we've got a lot of people coming together to watch a football game, and no doubt that's tremendous. But hopefully we can find a way to alleviate some of that pressure.
Alex Box Stadium, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, things are pretty good over there. I know Coach would love to see an indoor and some things to help with that program. Speaking of the world of recruiting, he's doing just an absolutely phenomenal job right now in there. But we've got a good structure over there. There's no doubt a few things that we could do to make it a little bit better, and we'll continue to look at that.
No swimming pools, no, water slides out in left field.
No, not right
now. Tiger Park, where they play softball. Mm-hmm. It's funny, Kelly. We think of these places as being brand new, and they pretty much are, but they are like 13, 14 years old.
Yep.
So I guess you still have to not just be satisfied. Okay, this is brand new, but they've done a real good job there. I feel like what they've done. I guess right before you got here.
Yeah, they do. I know soccer would like a board. We've got a couple things going on over at the natatorium. That space in particular could use some real upgrades, and so they'll see a board coming online as well to help with some of that. But the road to championships is always under construction. So I meet every week with our lead on capital projects, and there's a long list there.
I bet. It really is an arms race, isn't it? I mean, it's a case of well, Auburn got this, or Alabama got that, or Tennessee got that.
Forever it was brick and mortar. Now it's name, image, and likeness.
Yeah. A few more things with Keli Zinn, and I meant to ask you about so NIL for women, for example. Olivia Dunn has been a big topic. Mm-hmm. There's the side of it where people say, well, she's not one of the superstars of the team. She's not getting perfect tens. She's not competing in 3 and 4 events. Why is she getting all this money? And there was some controversy about that. And then what's the flip side? Was she supposed to say no? That she shouldn't be making millions before she's 25 years old or whatever. Mm-hmm. So your thoughts on that? It's a complicated subject.
I think a lot of the feedback surrounding that was unfair. Look, everybody has an opinion on what they believe is right and or wrong, but I think when you look at what she's been able to do from a social media standpoint and how she's done it, it's tasteful and not anything that I believe should create that much of a concern. So unfortunate to have that narrative out there, but again, everybody's entitled to their opinion. But we're super proud of her, and she's done just tremendous things in that space, and I think she will continue to do so.
Women's athletics here, Kim Mulkey, when they hired her, I couldn't believe it, and still to an extent, I'm in a press conference with Kim Mulkey. She's really the coach, What's it like to have a leader like that at this school, not only, that impacts women, but really moves the needle with anybody across the country?
Well, I mean, her passion and energy for her program, but even broader beyond that with LSU is just tremendous. You can't be in Kim's presence and not just be fired up about the day or what's going on. Her ability to coach and how she develops players and the way she sees the game. I've so enjoyed being around her and that program, and no doubt she's going to accomplish some really significant things here. It's been fun.
Have you been to a gymnastics school that sells 12,000 tickets for meets? I mean, that's coming up for you to enjoy for the first time, I guess.
Yeah, I haven't. And again, we talked about that at the outset, just the level at which things happen here from an athletic level is super impressive. But had the opportunity to see us in action Monday night at Gym 101, and I know that was very different from what it's going to look like as they come online here soon. But thrilled for it, and Jay's done a great job. They too are doing really, really well in the world of recruiting. So a great group of girls that we're expecting some good things from.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time. Let's end here. John Denver, was he singing about West Virginia or not? That's a controversial subject, right?
Yes. Folks will tell you no, but I just can't help but feel like he absolutely was.
That song was like over 50 years ago, and they're still debating it, right? So anyway, thanks so much for your time.
Absolutely.
We appreciate it. And keep following this young lady as LSU's doing big things here in athletics. Keli Zinn.
Yes, go Tigers.